Hey there, my name is David and I will be your Linode developer advocate for this video. In fact, this video is part of a series of videos that I've teamed up with Linode to create. The idea here is maybe you're in a situation where you don't want to or can't have your own server hardware, and maybe you just want to try some stuff out and get to learn Docker and self-hosting and that sort of thing before you commit to anything. And I think this is the exact right way to do it, especially since Linode is offering $100 in free credit for 60 days. If you head down to the link in the description. So while I don't necessarily think you need to go back and watch all of the different videos in this series, of course, unless you want to, and unless you want to take a look at all of the different containers that we've looked at so far, I definitely encourage you to at least go back and take a look at the first video so that you can kind of be on the same page with the rest of us as we go through this video. So let's actually jump into what we're going to talk about in this video today. We're going to talk about a note-taking application called Trillium. So this is Trillium. This is a very, very robust note-taking system with lots and lots of features in it. And what I actually really dig about Trillium is not only are there a lot of features built into it, it's built in such a way that you can build your own features if you're comfortable with writing JavaScript and that sort of thing. Of course, you don't have to. You can use this strictly as a note-taking application, or you can use the features that are already built into it, or I'm sure you can find other features that other people have built and integrate those yourself. Now, the integration part of this is kind of outside the scope of this video because that gets into some really, some more deep dive stuff that I don't know that we're going to cover in this video. But what I do want to cover in this video is how to get Trillium set up so that you can host your own note-taking application to just kind of build out your own knowledge base, however you want to build out your knowledge base. So let's just kind of take a quick spin through Trillium, and then we'll talk about how easy it is to get installed. So when we first log in, here's what we're going to see. This is the Trillium demo, and like it says over here, this is the initial demo document provided by default to showcase some of its features and also give some ideas on how you might be able to structure your notes. You can play with it, modify note content, and tree structure as you wish. And once you're done experimenting, if you want to clean up the pages, you can just simply delete them and start building Trillium out the way you want to build a Trillium. So here we can see they've got some formatting examples. They've got like a school schedule with with a grid layout here. We can take a look at that. We've got checkbox lists. We've got highlighting. Code blocks. We've got some math. If you wanted to do math in here, you can do that as well. They've got a journal built into this so that you can, kind of keep tabs on your day-to-day life if you want to do that in here. They've got some tech stuff in here for, just kind of keeping notes on different tech stuff. Of course, this is just a category that they've built for keeping notes and knowledge bases and things like that. Below that, they've got this canvas note. And I actually, this one always tickles me just a little bit. I love the idea of being able to just draw on a page with my mouse. So here is my mouse over here, and I can just grab the pencil and I can, do the a fill, a color. How transparent do I want it to be? I don't know why they got transparency. That's the background. My bad. I didn't read that all the way. The opacity, you've got layers that you can do, but you can just draw with your mouse, whatever you want to do, or you can create shapes, and do something like this. And you can do, like sloppiness, you can do fills, you can do strokes, all kinds of different stuff in here. Again, I just love dealing with canvas stuff and drawing on my webpage for some reason. It's always been something I've really enjoyed. We've got something called mermaid diagrams, which I had seen before, but I didn't know that's what they were called. You can see those here. They've got a books to read section and book templates and reviews. They've got a family tree section in here. Of course, this is all optional stuff you don't have to use. And of course, this is just a demonstration to show how big you can build the functionality in this. So if we take a look at the family tree here, here is kind of a family tree they built out, and some notes next to each person as far as child up, partner up, things like that. If we hover over one of these, it kind of pops up in what reminds me of a Wikipedia style entry here. And of course we can click that, and there is a more robust Wikipedia style entry about, in this case, Princess Diana. Below that, we've got some work stuff. you know, as far as like keeping track of different categories of work, things like that. But I think that kind of gives you an idea of how Trillium looks, how it works, that sort of thing. I also want to mention that if you head over to their GitHub repository, they've got a plethora of notes and options in here so that you can get very, very familiar with installation, setup, and advanced usage and sharing notes, all kinds of stuff. If we come down to this, we can actually open up some different things as far as like the relation map and get an idea of how it works. They've done a really good job of kind of building out their own knowledge base so that you can get the most out of Trillium. I highly recommend taking a look at the GitHub page for this application. I think before we actually go into the really, really simple installation process, what we want to do is actually get a domain name set up, a subdomain in this case, set up so that we can access Trillium on a subdomain. So here we are on our Linode dashboard. What we'll want to do is actually come over to our domains section, find the domain that we want to use. In this case, it's going to be tutorialserver.xyz. We'll go ahead and open that up. I want to go ahead and just grab this IP address. We're going to need that. But what I'm going to do is come over here where it says add an A/AAA record. We're going to click that. We're going to put in a host name. I'm going to call this notes. Oops, I've already got notes. I lied. We're not going to use notes. We're going to call this, let's call it Trillium. Like so. We'll put in the IP address. We'll back up like that so we don't have any extra spaces or anything. And we'll click save. So now we have our Trillium subdomain set up for our subdomain so that we can access again Trillium on that subdomain later when we get to that point. So the next thing we want to do is actually head over to Portainer. Of course, we covered how to get Portainer set up and running in the very first video of this series. So that's just going to be your Linode's IP address with port 9000 tacked on at the end of that. So we'll jump over there now. And then we'll come over here to stacks. We're going to add a stack. We'll call it Trillium, like so, and then we'll go ahead and paste in our Docker Compose. And if we take a look at this Docker Compose here, we can see that it's a version 3.3. We've got a service in here called Trillium. We're going to put that on port 8482 for the host side of things, and for the container side of things, that's going to be on port 8080, like we can see right there. We've got a volume here. I actually want to change that just real quick. If you've watched the other videos in this series, you'll know that I store my Docker containers in home /docker / whatever the name of the application is. In this case, home/docker/Trillium on the host side of things, and then home/node/Trillium-data on the container side of things. We don't want to mess with anything on the container side. Our image will be zatom. I'm not sure if that's correct, but that's what I'm going to say here. The image is zatom/Trillium with a latest tag to make sure we've got the most current version of the Docker image. Below that, we've got a network that we've added on here for Nginx proxy manager _default. That was the network that we created at the very first video of this series so that we could kind of get all of our containers to talk to our reverse proxy, which is, of course, is Nginx proxy manager. So that's why we used that network. And then below that, we actually have to declare that it's an external network because it's already been created. So once we've got all of this, we're happy with all of the stuff we've got here, we can scroll down and click on deploy the stack. We'll give this a couple of minutes to pull everything and do what it needs to do. And then once it's up and ready, we'll go ahead and take a look at the rest of the installation process. So here we are. The page has refreshed. It says our stack has deployed successfully. So we'll click on Trillium here. We can see that it's starting right there. So we're going to go ahead and open up the logs with this little icon right here. Here we can see that it says it's listening on port 8080. Of course, that's the container side of things that it's listening on there. So that's good to go. So what we can do is click this just to make sure it's going to work. And then we're going to pause. This is what we want to stop with for the moment because this tells us that everything is up and working appropriately. So the next thing we want to do is actually go in and make sure that we have a subdomain pointed using our reverse proxy. We're going to use Nginx proxy manager for that. Again, we set that up in the first video of this series. So we're going to go to our Linode's IP address and then tack on port 81 in order to get to Nginx proxy manager. So here we are on Nginx Proxy Manager. What we want to do once we're here is actually create an SSL. So what we'll do is we'll come up here to the SSL certificates. We're going to click over here where it says Add SSL Certificate. We'll click on Let's Encrypt. We're just going to use a free SSL for this. We're going to enter the domain name for our subdomain in this case, which was Trillium. tutorialserver.xyz. We'll hit enter and we'll click test. And it says your server is reachable and creating certificates should be possible. Now, there is a chance that this will say, hey, we can't reach that domain. Sometimes that will happen, and it's just DNS still propagating in the background. Give it a couple of minutes, and usually that will resolve the issue. So just something that I've run into in the past doing this, and I wanted to make you aware of there. So now that we've seen this, this is good. We're ready to move on. We can click close, and then we can come down here, make sure our email address is correct. We're going to go ahead and say, I agree to the terms of service. Make sure you agree before you check the box. But once you do, you can click save. We'll give this a minute to actually generate the SSL and store it appropriately. And then once that's done, we can actually go in and set up our subdomain in Nginx Proxy Manager. So now to do that, what we'll do is we'll click on hosts. We're going to click on proxy hosts. We're going to come over here to where it says add a proxy host. And we're going to go ahead again and put in that subdomain that we just got an SSL for. And then we'll hit enter. Now our scheme below this is HTTP. If the container itself had an SSL built into it, like some do, we could switch this to HTTPS. Like if we drop this down, we can see we have two options there. But because this container does not have an SSL built into it, we're going to leave the scheme on HTTP. Our forward hostname/IP. Now, you might think that we would put our server's IP address in there, and in some cases you might be right, but because we actually have put all of our containers on a single Docker network, we're actually going to use the Docker network IP address, and we can find that by going back over to Portainer. And right here is our container that is up and running here. And if we scroll over to right here, we can actually see the IP address of that container. So we're going to go ahead and copy that. We'll come back over to here and paste that in. Make sure we don't have any extra spaces anywhere. And then we also need a forward port. Now that's going to be the port on the Docker side of things, on the container side of things, not the Docker, the container side of things. And in that case, this is going to be 8080. That's on the right side of that colon in our ports there. So we're going to go ahead and come back over. We're going to put 8080 in there. Then we can go ahead if we want to and cache our assets, enable WebSocket support, and block common exploits. And then over here on the SSL, we're going to come down and find where we put that particular SSL, which is trillium.tutorialserver.xyz right there. And we want to make sure that we force our SSL and make sure that we go ahead and check these others just so that we've got the best possible chance of making sure that the SSL is always enforced. So we're going to go ahead and click on save here. And then we should be able to come down to the bottom of our list or wherever it shows up in your list here. Click this. And there we go. Now we are on Trillium.tutorialserver.xyz. Of course, it's forwarded us to the /setup page here. Basically, we're going to go ahead and do this. It says Trillium Note Setup. I'm a new user and I want to create a Trillium document for my notes, or I already have a Trillium or desktop instance and I want to sync with it, or I already have a server instance and I want to sync with that. Now, because this is a brand new installation, what we want to do is just say, I'm a new user and click next. So it's going to go ahead and run some stuff in the background. And then we want to actually go ahead and enter a password. Now, this is a single user setup. So you're only going to have a password to log in with. So let's go ahead and enter a password and click on set password. Go ahead and click on set password. And then it's going to ask us to log in. So let's go ahead and enter our password and click log in. And here we go. Here is our new Trillium instance up and running, just like we saw before, on a domain name or a subdomain with an SSL, everything up and running exactly like you would want it to be. So that's how easy it is to get Trillium up and running so that you can have your own semi-self-hosted anyway, knowledge base that you can build out however you want. There's a ton of resources out there to get familiar with custom application building and that sort of thing. Again, that's kind of outside the scope of what we're aiming for in this video, but hopefully you enjoy the idea of Trillium as much as I do. And if you found this video helpful or informative, do me a favor and give the video a thumbs up. It really does help us out here on this channel. But I think with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Of course, if you got questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. Don't forget to check out the description down below as well, where you'll find a link to get $100 in free credit over on Linode to try them out free for 60 days. But all that said, again, I'm going to wrap this up and I will talk to you guys in the next video.